The night was quiet, the kind of silence that felt heavy after a long day. A young man sat outside his small wooden cabin, watching the stars blink over the dark mountains. He liked nights like this, where the only sound was the whisper of wind through pine trees. He took a deep breath, letting the cool air fill his lungs. For a moment, the world was still and peaceful, but then it happened. A strange sound cut through the night, low and deep, like thunder wrapped in metal. The ground trembled under his feet. He stood quickly, looking up at the sky. A streak of silver light tore across the darkness, moving too fast, too wild to be a plane. It burned bright, leaving a trail of fire behind it before crashing into the forest beyond the ridge. The explosion was silent, but the flash turned the trees into silhouettes against the light. His heart pounded. Curiosity and fear mixed inside him. Without thinking twice, he grabbed his flashlight, threw on his jacket, and ran toward the crash. The woods were dark, the path rough and full of roots, but he knew these trees well. The smell of smoke grew stronger as he got closer. Then he saw it, the wreck. It wasn't big, not like the ships he saw in movies. It looked more like a metallic pod, smooth and glowing with a strange blue light. Sparks danced around it, and steam rose from the ground where it had crashed. He moved closer slowly, his flashlight shaking in his hand. The light from inside the wreck was soft, almost alive. He hesitated at the edge, unsure if he should call for help, but then he heard something, a weak sound, like someone breathing. He stepped inside the wreckage, and what he saw made him freeze. Lying against the wall was a tall creature, thin and pale, its skin shimmering like glass. Its eyes were large, glowing faintly green, and its chest rose and fell with difficulty. In its arms was a small bundle wrapped in silver fabric. The man's first thought was that it was protecting something. The creature turned its head slowly toward him. Their eyes met, and for a second, time stopped. He could feel its pain, its fear. It tried to speak, its voice broken and heavy. "Human, don't run." The man couldn't move. His breath caught in his throat. The creature coughed, glowing brighter for a moment as it held out the bundle. "You've just been chosen," it whispered. The words echoed in his head, strange and heavy with meaning. He didn't understand what it meant. Chosen for what? The alien's arms trembled as it pushed the bundle toward him. He hesitated, but his hands reached out on their own. The fabric was warm, pulsing faintly like it was alive. He slowly opened it, expecting maybe a strange machine or crystal, but what he saw made his heart stop again. Inside were 3 small creatures, alien pups, their skin smooth and faintly glowing with soft blue light. They looked peaceful, asleep, breathing gently in unison. They were beautiful and strange, their small limbs curling together like human infants. The alien's eyes dimmed. Its body started to fade, turning translucent. "Protect them," it said weakly, the voice echoing both in the air and in the man's mind. Before he could say anything, the light in the alien's eyes went out. The creature slumped, and the glow in its body faded completely. Silence filled the wreck once more. The man knelt there, holding the bundle tightly, staring at the lifeless body before him. His heart raced. He didn't know what to do, but something inside told him he couldn't just leave them there. He looked around the wreck. Strange symbols glowed faintly on the metal walls. They pulsed in a rhythm, like a heartbeat. He took a few steps back, unsure if the ship would explode, but it stayed quiet, humming softly like it was asleep. He looked down at the pups again. One of them stirred, letting out a small, soft sound, like a kitten's cry. The man's fear began to fade, replaced by something else, a feeling he couldn't explain. It was like the moment he found a lost puppy as a child, scared and alone, and something deep inside him told him he had to help. He wrapped the bundle tighter and ran back toward his cabin. The forest seemed darker now. Every shadow looked alive, every sound sharper. He could feel eyes watching him. Once inside, he locked the door and placed the bundle on the couch. The pups were awake now, their large black eyes watching him silently. One of them blinked and made a soft chirping sound. The man sat on the floor, staring at them, still trying to make sense of what had happened. The alien's final words echoed in his mind, "You've been chosen." He didn't know what that meant, but deep down, he felt it wasn't just a warning. It was a promise. Outside, the forest was quiet again, but far above the mountains, a faint silver light flickered in the sky, as if something, or someone, was still watching. The morning came slow, gray, and heavy with mist. The man woke up with a strange feeling in his chest, like he wasn't sure if last night had been real. He sat up on the couch, his head still spinning. For a moment, he thought it was all a dream. But then he heard a soft sound, a small cooing noise, like a mix between a bird's song and a baby's sigh. He turned his head slowly. The bundle on the floor was moving. His breath caught as he leaned closer. 3 small alien pups lay there, blinking at him with large dark eyes that shimmered with faint blue light. Their skin looked smooth and glassy, and their bodies pulsed faintly, glowing brighter when they breathed. One of them sneezed. A tiny spark of light puffed from its nose. The man froze, unsure whether to laugh or scream. He rubbed his face and whispered, "What are you?" None of them answered, of course, but one tilted its head as if it understood. The man got up and walked to the kitchen, trying to think. His mind replayed the crash, the dying alien, those last words, "Human, don't run, you've been chosen." He poured himself coffee, but his hands were shaking so much that half of it spilled. What did it mean? Chosen for what? He looked around his small cabin. Wooden walls, a few photos, a small fireplace, everything normal, peaceful. But lying on his rug were 3 glowing creatures from another world. He laughed softly under his breath. "This can't be happening," he said to himself. But when one of the pups started whining, his heart softened. He knelt again, reaching out carefully. "Hey, it's okay," he whispered. The smallest one crawled toward his hand, its tiny limbs pressing against the rug like jelly. When it touched his fingers, a soft warmth spread through his skin. He gasped. It wasn't just touching him, it was feeling him. He could sense curiosity, confusion, and something that felt like trust. The warmth grew, and for a moment, he thought he saw images, flashes of stars, a world of silver towers, and then fire. War. Screams. He pulled his hand back, trembling. His heart raced. "What are you showing me?" he whispered, but the images were gone. He sat back, his mind spinning. These things weren't just alive. They were intelligent. Maybe more than he could understand. He stood and grabbed his phone, planning to call someone, the police, scientists, anyone. But as soon as he pressed the power button, the screen flickered and went black. He tried again. Nothing. He checked the lights. Dead. The power was out. He went outside, thinking maybe the storm had hit the lines, but everything was fine. The air was still, but strange. It felt thick, humming faintly. He could almost hear something under the silence, like a low vibration. He stepped back inside, uneasy. The pups were staring at him now. All 3. Not with fear, but as if they knew something he didn't. Then, clear as day, a voice echoed in his head. Soft, calm, and not human. "Protect us." The man froze. He looked around, whispering, "Who said that?" The voice came again, this time gentle, almost like a child. "We are afraid. They will come." His knees felt weak. He sat down on the floor, his hands gripping the rug. "Who will come?" he asked quietly. The voice faded, replaced by silence. Then, from the forest outside, came a distant rumble. Not thunder this time, but engines. The man rushed to the window. Through the fog, he saw shadows moving, dark shapes with blinking lights. Trucks. Military ones. His stomach dropped. Somehow, someone already knew. He shut the curtains quickly and turned off what little remained of his lantern light. The pups began to tremble, their glow dimming. "It's okay, stay quiet," he whispered, though his own heart hammered like a drum. Outside, the rumbling grew louder. He heard voices, distant but firm. Orders. Secure the area. He crouched by the window and peeked out again. Dozens of men in dark uniforms moved through the trees, scanning the ground with strange devices that glowed green. A tall man in a suit stood near the lead truck, talking into a headset. His voice carried through the morning air. Containment Team Alpha. Search for energy signatures. The craft landed somewhere here. We have to find the specimens before they bond. The man's breath caught. Bond? What did that mean? He looked down at the pups, and suddenly, everything made sense. The alien had said, "You've been chosen." These things weren't random cargo. They were meant for him. Maybe to learn, maybe to survive. He didn't know. But the word "before they bond" echoed in his mind like thunder. He looked back toward the woods. The soldiers were moving closer, scanning every inch. He needed to hide the pups. He grabbed an old wooden box, lined it with blankets, and placed them gently inside. The smallest one looked up at him, eyes shimmering sadly. He smiled weakly. "I'll keep you safe. I promise." He carried the box down to the basement, closing the heavy door behind him. Upstairs, boots crunched on gravel. A knock echoed through the cabin, hard and official. "Sir, this is government property now. Please open the door." The man's heart thudded painfully. He didn't move. The knocking grew louder. "We know you're inside," said the voice again, sharper now. He took a deep breath, forcing his voice steady. "What's going on?" he called back. "There was a crash. We're making sure everyone's safe," one of them replied, but there was no warmth in his tone. The man slowly opened the door halfway. Two soldiers stood there, helmets gleaming, eyes hidden behind visors. One of them held a scanner that beeped faintly when it pointed at the man's chest. "You live alone?" the soldier asked. "Yeah," the man said quietly, trying not to look nervous. The beeping stopped. The soldier nodded once. "If you see anything strange, report it immediately." "Sure," he said, forcing a smile. They turned to leave, but then the one in the suit, the leader, stopped and glanced back. His eyes were cold. "Be careful, sir. Some things aren't meant for humans to keep." Then they left. The man shut the door fast, locking it again. He leaned against it, breathing hard. His hands shook. Downstairs, he heard a small sound. He rushed down, afraid they'd been scared. But the pups were calm now, glowing softly in the dark. When he reached for them, a new wave of warmth filled the air, stronger this time, wrapping around him like invisible light. He saw brief flashes in his mind again. The same alien from last night, whispering one last word before fading. "Teach." The man swallowed hard. He didn't understand everything, but one thing was clear. The soldiers outside weren't there to save anyone. They were hunting. And somehow, these small glowing creatures, these alien pups, were now his to protect. Night fell again, bringing with it a heavy silence that pressed against the cabin walls. The man sat near the window, the lights still out, watching the forest. The soldiers had left at sunset, but he knew they hadn't gone far. He had seen them setting up camp near the road, their strange equipment glowing faintly in the dark. The mountain air felt different now, heavier, charged with a quiet tension. He looked down at the basement door, his mind spinning with worry. The pups hadn't made a sound for hours, as if they understood the danger around them. He took a deep breath, grabbed his flashlight, and went downstairs. The moment he opened the door, a faint blue glow lit up the room. The three pups were huddled together on the blanket, sleeping. The air felt warm, peaceful. For the first time in days, he smiled. "You're safe," he whispered softly. But then his heart sank again as he remembered what the soldier had said, "before they bond." He didn't know what that meant, but it sounded like something he couldn't allow them to find out. He sat down beside the box, resting his back against the wall. "What am I supposed to do with you?" he muttered. One of the pups opened its eyes and blinked up at him. Its body pulsed faintly, and for a moment, he felt a small wave of calm wash over his mind. It was almost like the creature was answering his question, not with words, but with feelings. The warmth in his chest grew stronger, and before he could blink, he saw something, a flash of images, not his own memories but theirs. He saw a planet, bright and full of silver towers. He saw oceans of blue fire, alien children running through crystal gardens. Then everything turned dark. Explosions, smoke, ships falling from the sky. He saw soldiers wearing the same kind of armor as the ones outside. Then, a single ship escaping through the storm, carrying 3 small glowing eggs. His eyes widened as the image faded. The pup blinked again, its tiny head tilting as if waiting for him to understand. He whispered, "You were running from them, weren't you?" The pup made a soft sound, almost like a whimper, and leaned closer to his hand. He reached out slowly and stroked its smooth skin. It was warm, alive, and for some strange reason, it felt familiar. "It's okay," he said softly. "You're safe here." He didn't know why, but he meant it. He felt it deep in his heart. Suddenly, a soft beeping sound echoed from outside. He froze. It was faint, but steady, electronic, methodical. He turned off his flashlight and crept upstairs, moving quietly to the window. Through the mist, he could see them again, the soldiers. They were scanning the ground near his cabin, their devices flashing green and red. One of them knelt, waving a sensor over the soil. Then the man's heart sank. Faint blue footprints glowed on the ground, leading straight to his porch. He whispered under his breath, "No," and backed away. They were coming. He ran to the basement, whispering urgently, "We have to go." The pups looked up, sensing his fear. One of them let out a faint chirp, and the others followed. Their bodies glowed softly, reacting to his emotions. He wrapped them quickly in a blanket and placed them inside his old hiking backpack. The glow dimmed, hidden beneath the fabric. He turned off every remaining light, grabbed his jacket, and slipped out the back door into the forest. The cold air hit him hard. He moved fast, sticking to the shadows. The sound of boots echoed behind him as the soldiers reached the cabin. Flashlights swept through the windows. He could hear their voices, short, sharp orders. "He's hiding something. Find him." His heart raced as he climbed through the trees, every step crunching softly against leaves. The forest felt alive around him, humming faintly as if aware of the chase. Then, out of nowhere, his mind filled with a voice, soft, frightened. "They hurt our kind. Please run." It wasn't spoken out loud. It was inside his head. He looked over his shoulder and whispered, "I'm not leaving you." The voice came again, this time more desperate. "They want to use us. They will take our minds." His grip on the backpack tightened. He didn't know how far he had to go, but he knew he couldn't let them catch him. The trees grew thicker as he reached the edge of the valley. The moonlight barely touched the ground here, and mist curled between the roots. His lungs burned, but he kept moving. He tripped over a rock and fell hard, rolling to the ground. The backpack landed beside him, and one of the pups let out a small cry. "Shh, it's okay," he whispered, pulling the blanket tighter around them. He listened carefully. Voices echoed faintly in the distance, but they were moving in another direction. He sighed in relief. For now, they were safe. He sat under a tree, catching his breath. The night was silent again except for the faint hum in the air. He looked down at the pups. Their glow was dimmer now, but peaceful. One of them reached out with a small, glowing limb and touched his wrist. Instantly, his vision blurred again. Not images this time, but feelings. Warmth, safety, and something that felt like gratitude. He smiled softly, whispering, "You can understand me, can't you?" The smallest pup blinked, its glow pulsing in rhythm with his heartbeat. He didn't know how, but they were connected now. The bond the soldiers had mentioned was real, and it was growing stronger. He realized they weren't just protecting themselves. They were protecting him too. The air shifted suddenly. A faint mechanical was sounded nearby. He turned his head sharply. Above the trees, a black drone hovered silently, red lights flashing as it scanned the ground. He froze, his breath shallow. Slowly, he reached for the small branch beside him and threw it into the bushes. The drone turned toward the sound and moved away. He used the moment to slip deeper into the woods, heading toward the old mine tunnels at the base of the mountain, a place only he knew. The path was rough and steep, but he didn't stop. His only thought was to stay hidden. As he neared the entrance, one of the pups stirred again and looked up at him. Its voice echoed faintly in his mind. "They fear us, but you are not afraid." He whispered back, "No, I'm not." For the first time, the pup made a sound that almost sounded like laughter, soft and musical. He smiled despite the danger. The man and the 3 glowing pups disappeared into the mine's darkness as the drone's red lights passed overhead. Outside, in the distance, the lead soldier raised his scanner and frowned. "The signal's gone," he muttered. The man in the suit looked up at the sky and narrowed his eyes. "No," he said coldly, "it's just hidden. And when we find him, the experiment ends." But deep in the mountain's shadow, the man finally stopped running. The pups were quiet, resting in his arms. The world outside searched for them, but for the first time since the crash, he felt a strange calm. Maybe, he thought, this wasn't just about protecting them. Maybe he was part of something far greater, something meant to change everything. The darkness inside the old mine was deep and heavy, wrapping around the man like a cold blanket. The air smelled of earth and metal, damp from years of rain seeping through cracks in the mountain. His flashlight flickered weakly as he made his way deeper into the tunnels, the sound of his boots echoing off the stone walls. He kept one hand on the backpack, feeling the faint warmth of the pups through the fabric. Their soft glow illuminated the tunnel just enough to see where he was going. Every few steps, he stopped to listen. The forest outside was alive with faint noises, distant engines, the whirring of drones, men's voices calling through radios, but down here, it was quiet. Safe. For now. He reached a small chamber deep in the mine and finally stopped. His body ached from running, but he didn't care. He set the backpack on the ground and opened it carefully. The 3 pups blinked up at him, their bodies glowing softly, like embers in the dark. "We're safe," he whispered, though his voice trembled. The smallest one tilted its head, its dark eyes studying his face as if it understood. He sat down beside them, leaning against the cool stone wall. His flashlight finally gave out, leaving only their soft blue light to fill the room. The glow reflected off the rocks, turning the chamber into a world of shifting shadows. For a while, he just sat there, listening to his heartbeat slow. The silence was strangely comforting. Then, one of the pups made a sound, a low hum that vibrated through the floor. The man frowned and looked around. "What are you doing?" he whispered. The glow from the pup grew brighter, pulsing in rhythm. The walls began to shimmer faintly, thin lines of light spreading across the stone like veins. The man's eyes widened. Symbols appeared, the same kind he had seen inside the crashed ship, glowing faintly white and silver. The hum deepened, and the air vibrated with energy. He stumbled back, shielding his face from the light. "Stop!" he shouted, but the pups didn't seem afraid. They were calm, their bodies glowing brighter with every pulse. Then, all at once, the light stopped. The room fell silent again, but the symbols on the wall stayed, faint and glowing like stars. The man lowered his hands slowly. The air smelled faintly of ozone. What did you just do?" he whispered, his voice shaking. The smallest pup climbed closer, looking at him with wide eyes. He felt a wave of warmth fill his chest again, and then the voice returned, soft, gentle, not spoken but felt. "We called home." His breath caught. "Home," he said quietly. "You mean your world?" The pup blinked. "Our kind is far, too far. We are alone now." The sadness in the voice hit him like a weight. He swallowed hard, his throat tight. "Then why call them?" "Because they are looking," the voice said. "The others. The bad ones. The ones who made us run." The man frowned. "You mean those soldiers?" The pup's glow flickered. "Not human soldiers. Others like us. But not kind. They want power, not peace." His heart pounded faster. So there were more of these aliens out there, not all of them friendly. "Why did you come here?" he asked softly. "Why Earth?" The pup's answer came slowly. "Because we were told to find a kind heart. A protector." A human who feels more than he fights. The man stared at them, his mind racing. The alien that crashed, he said, I was chosen. He chose you because you listened, the voice said simply. Because when you saw the light, you did not run. The man looked down, speechless. All this time, he had thought it was just an accident. A crash in the woods, a dying creature. But now he realized it was something else. Something meant to happen. He rubbed his hands through his hair, whispering, I don't even know how to protect you. I'm just one man. The pup looked up, glowing faintly brighter. You already are. The words hit him deeper than he expected. He didn't know what they meant, but somehow, they gave him strength. Then, a sudden noise broke the calm, a distant thud, followed by a metallic hum. The man froze, his body tense. He turned off what little light remained. The sound came again, closer this time. He recognized it instantly. Drones. They had found the mine. No, he whispered. He quickly packed the pups back into the blanket and slipped the bag onto his shoulders. The hum of the drones echoed down the tunnels, their lights flickering through the cracks in the rock. He started running again, deeper into the mine, his breath heavy and quick. The tunnels twisted like a maze. The air grew colder and thinner. The pups stirred, glowing softly, guiding his way through the dark. Behind him, the metallic sounds grew louder. The drones were fast. Too fast. One beam of red light sliced across the tunnel wall behind him, burning the stone. He ducked, heart pounding, and turned sharply into a narrow passage. The walls shimmered faintly where the pup's glow touched them. Suddenly, the smallest one reached out its small glowing limb and touched the wall. Instantly, the entire tunnel lit up with alien symbols again, brighter this time, forming a circle of light around them. The drones stopped at the entrance of the passage, their lights flickering wildly. A high-pitched noise filled the air, and then, silence. The machines froze midair, their red eyes going dark. The man stared in disbelief. What did you just do? He whispered. The voice echoed softly in his mind again. This place remembers us. It is safe here. He looked around at the glowing walls, realizing this wasn't just a random mine. Long ago, someone, maybe the same kind as them, had been here before. He felt chills crawl up his spine. You mean, your kind has been to Earth before? Long ago, the voice said. Before humans could speak the star's name. He sat down slowly, trying to take it all in. The pups climbed out of the bag and nestled against him. The warmth they gave off felt stronger now, wrapping around him like invisible light. For the first time, he felt something beyond fear, a strange peace. He looked at the glowing walls again and whispered, maybe this is where we start over. But deep in the tunnels, something stirred, a vibration so faint he almost didn't feel it. One of the pups lifted its head, eyes glowing wide. They found us, the voice said, trembling slightly. Not humans. The others. The man clenched his fists, standing up again. Then we fight, he said quietly. The pup's glow brightened in response, casting long shadows across the stone. Outside, far above the mountain, a flash of light appeared in the sky, another ship entering the atmosphere. The storm was far from over, and the man had no idea what awaited him next. But one thing was certain, he wasn't just a bystander anymore. He was part of something far bigger, something that would change both worlds forever. The night air outside the mine had turned colder, sharper, and the faint hum of the forest seemed to vanish as if the world itself was holding its breath. Deep inside the tunnel, the man stood with his back pressed against the wall, listening to the low rumble growing louder above. Dust drifted down from the ceiling. The sound was distant at first, like thunder, but it carried a rhythm, mechanical, heavy, alive. He looked at the pups, who huddled near the glowing symbols on the wall. Their small bodies pulsed faintly, and for the first time, he saw fear in their glowing eyes. The voice returned in his head, weak and trembling. They are close, not humans, our kind, but lost. The man swallowed hard. The bad ones, he whispered. One of the pups nodded, its glow flickering dimly. They want power. They followed us here. His mind spun. If more aliens were coming, ones that could track the pups even here, then nowhere on Earth would be safe. The ground shook harder, and a thin line of dust fell from the roof of the cave. He grabbed his bag, slinging it over his shoulder. "We need to move," he said firmly, even though he didn't know where. The tunnels stretched deep into the mountain, winding into old mining shafts that hadn't seen daylight for decades. He ran through the dark, the pups glowing faintly in his arms. Their light cast shifting patterns on the rough stone, like stars moving across a night sky. As they ran, one of the pups let out a small, trembling hum that echoed off the walls. It wasn't random, it was deliberate, like a signal. The man frowned. "What are you doing?" The answer came as a whisper in his mind. Calling protection, old code, old guardians. Before he could ask more, the hum deepened, and the mine around them responded. The walls shimmered, the glowing alien symbols spreading again like veins of light, brighter than before. For a brief second, the whole tunnel seemed alive, pulsing with warmth. Then the glow faded, leaving behind silence, and then, faintly, an echoing sound, like footsteps. The man froze. They weren't alone anymore. "Stay close," he whispered, turning off his flashlight. He could see faint silhouettes moving in the tunnel ahead, tall figures, thin and sharp, with armor that shimmered like liquid metal. Their faces were covered by masks with glowing red lines for eyes. They moved without sound, like shadows with form. The man held his breath, pressing against the wall. The pups stayed quiet, their glow dimming almost completely. The intruders stopped near the carved symbols, scanning them. One of them spoke in a harsh, distorted language, its voice metallic and cold. The man didn't understand the words, but he could feel their meaning through the pups. Anger, frustration, and something darker, hunger for control. One of the pups sent a thought into his mind: "They seek us. They want our energy." He understood then that these were no rescuers. They were predators. The alien figures moved deeper into the tunnel, and the man knew if he stayed still, they would find him soon. He needed to lead them away from the pups. He whispered softly, "Stay hidden," and set the backpack down behind a pile of rocks. The pups whined softly, their glow flickering like candlelight, but he shook his head. "I'll come back," he promised, then turned and moved toward the other side of the tunnel. Every step was slow, careful. The ground beneath his boots crunched softly, but the sound was swallowed by the constant hum of alien energy. One of the intruders turned its head sharply toward him, its red eyes flaring brighter. The man froze. Then, without thinking, he grabbed a loose piece of rock and threw it into a side passage. The sound echoed loudly. The aliens turned instantly, chasing the noise. He used the moment to slip away deeper into the mine, his heart hammering against his ribs. He ran until he reached an old wooden platform near a collapsed section. Rusted rails stretched into darkness. He stopped there, panting, realizing he was cornered. Then, from the other end of the tunnel, red light appeared again. 3 of them, moving closer, scanning the walls. The man looked around desperately. There was nowhere to hide. He picked up a rusted pickaxe from the ground and gripped it tightly, though he knew it wouldn't do much. "Come on then," he whispered, his voice low but steady. The aliens stepped into the open space, their armor gleaming like polished obsidian. One of them raised a hand, and energy crackled around it. A bolt of red lightning that hit the wall beside him, burning a deep scar into the rock. The shockwave threw him to the ground. He coughed, choking on dust, but somehow pushed himself up again. Before the alien could strike again, a flash of blue light burst from behind them. The man blinked through the dust. The pups had followed him. Their glow had changed, brighter, sharper, alive with energy. The smallest one floated slightly above the ground, its eyes glowing white. The air vibrated as symbols appeared again on the walls, and then, light exploded through the tunnel. The aliens screamed as the energy hit them, their armor cracking and smoking. The man shielded his face, unable to see through the brilliance. When the light faded, the tunnel was quiet again. The aliens were gone, reduced to glowing ash that scattered across the floor. The pups landed softly, their glow dimming back to normal. The man dropped to his knees, staring at them in awe. You did that," he whispered. The largest pup blinked, and the calm voice returned in his head. "They cannot survive purity. We are not fighters, but we defend." He looked around at the scorched walls, his breath shaking. The mine smelled of metal and ozone. "You saved me," he said quietly. The pup blinked again. "You saved us first." The warmth in his chest grew again, stronger this time, almost overwhelming. For a moment, he felt every heartbeat, every emotion they had: fear, relief, trust. The bond between them deepened, no longer one-sided. They weren't just creatures needing protection anymore. They were partners. He took a deep breath and said, "We can't stay here. If they found us, others will too." "There is a place," the voice said faintly. "A signal. We can show you." The pup's glow brightened again, projecting faint lines of light in the air, forming a map of the mountain. A point pulsed deep beneath the earth, something hidden. The man stared at it, realization dawning. "Another ship," he whispered. "Or something you left behind." The pup's voice trembled slightly. "The seed of hope. A memory of home." He nodded slowly, determination replacing fear. "Then that's where we're going." He packed them carefully, making sure they were safe, then turned toward the lower tunnels. Behind them, the mine was silent again, but the symbols on the walls continued to glow faintly, as if watching, as if alive. Far above the surface, the sky shimmered with a faint light as another alien ship entered Earth's atmosphere, larger than the first. The chase was far from over, but the man didn't look back. For the first time since that night in the woods, he wasn't running aimlessly anymore. He had a purpose, a direction, and 3 small beings who now trusted him completely. And though he didn't understand it yet, he was beginning to feel that they hadn't just chosen him. They had awakened something inside him that had been sleeping all his life. The tunnels grew narrower and steeper as the man descended, his breath echoing softly in the cold underground air. His legs burned from the climb, but he didn't slow down. The faint light from the pups glowed against the stone, painting the walls with shifting waves of blue and white. The deeper they went, the stranger the air felt, thicker, humming softly like the heart of a machine. The man could feel it in his bones. "We're close, aren't we?" he whispered. One of the pups lifted its small glowing head, its voice echoing gently in his mind. "Yes, below, the memory sleeps." He followed the sound of trickling water until the tunnel opened into a wide cavern. The sight made him stop cold. The space was enormous, filled with stone pillars that stretched into darkness. In the center was something that didn't belong there. A large metallic structure half buried in rock and dust. It looked ancient, yet alive. Its surface pulsed with faint lines of light, the same symbols that had appeared in the mine before. He stepped closer, heart pounding. "What is that?" he whispered. The largest pup floated from his arms and landed gently near the base of the structure. "It is a cradle," the voice said softly. "Built by our ancestors when they came here long ago, before your kind could speak. It holds our memory and our warning." The man frowned, confused. "A warning? For who?" "For all life," the voice said. "It remembers everything that happened before we fled our world." As the pup touched the metal surface, the entire structure came alive. The symbols flared with bright light, flooding the cavern with brilliance. The man shielded his eyes as beams of silver energy projected upward, forming a massive hologram that filled the space. He saw stars, hundreds of them, then ships, battles, worlds burning. He saw creatures like the pups, but older, stronger, and darker. Their faces were twisted with rage and pride. "Our kind forgot what love was," the voice said. "We became gods of power. We destroyed worlds, until there was nothing left but fire." The man watched in silence as the vision shifted again. He saw a group of glowing beings escaping a burning planet, carrying small pods, the same as the one that had crashed in the woods. "Our ancestors sent their children to find hope," the voice continued. "To find hearts that still understood kindness. They sent us to you." The hologram faded, leaving only the quiet hum of the structure. The man sank to his knees, his mind spinning. You mean, your whole world is gone? Yes, the voice said softly. And those who survived became hunters. The ones who came tonight. They follow the old ways, power, not peace. He ran a hand through his hair, trying to breathe. And you think I can help you stop them? Not stop, the voice whispered. Change. He looked at the pups, 3 small, glowing creatures that could barely fill his arms, and felt a strange surge of emotion. They weren't just survivors. They were hope. Then we protect this place, he said firmly. We protect this memory. But before he could stand, a deep rumble shook the cavern. Dust rained from above. The pups' glows flickered nervously. They found us, the voice said, filled with dread. The man turned toward the tunnel they had come through, and froze. A wave of red light poured into the cavern. Dozens of figures emerged from the shadows, their armor gleaming like liquid fire. Behind them, floating silently, was a massive black drone the size of a small car. Its red sensors pulsed as it scanned the room. The leader stepped forward, taller than the others, with armor that shimmered faintly blue at the edges. His mask opened to reveal a face that was both alien and familiar, gray skin, glowing eyes, and scars that ran down its cheek like molten metal. The cradle of memory, it said, its voice echoing across the stone. So this is where the traitor sent his brood. The pups shrank back, trembling. The man stepped in front of them, his fists clenched though he knew he stood no chance. Stay away from them, he said, his voice steady but cold. The alien leader tilted its head. You protect them? Strange. Your species destroys what it fears. Not all of us, the man replied quietly. The alien studied him for a moment, then smiled, an expression that was both cruel and fascinated. Then you will watch as they die. Their light is poison to our kind. It must be extinguished. The man's heart pounded. He knew he couldn't fight them, but he wasn't going to let them win. You'll have to go through me first. The alien raised a clawed hand, energy crackling around it. But before it could strike, the pups floated upward, glowing brighter than ever before. Their combined light grew so intense that even the alien soldiers stepped back. The air vibrated with power. You will not harm him, the voice said, not just one voice now, but 3, blending into something powerful and ancient. The alien leader hissed and fired a bolt of energy. The man jumped in front of the pups without thinking. The blast hit him square in the chest, throwing him backward into the stone. Pain exploded through his body. He gasped for breath, collapsing to the ground. The pups screamed, their glow turning pure white. The entire cavern shook as beams of light shot from their bodies, striking the walls, the floor, even the ceiling. The alien soldiers screamed as their armor began to melt. The leader staggered, his mask cracking under the brilliance. Impossible, he roared. They're only children. But it was too late. The light filled every corner of the cavern, searing everything it touched. When it finally faded, the air was still. The man lay motionless on the ground, his shirt burned where the blast had struck. The pups hovered over him, glowing faintly again. Please, live, one whispered softly in his mind. He groaned and opened his eyes. I'm still here, he muttered weakly. He looked around. The aliens were gone, their armor scattered as black dust across the floor. The huge drone had melted into slag. The cradle of memory still pulsed faintly, untouched. The pups floated down beside him, their glow warm and soft. He reached out weakly and smiled. You did it, he whispered. You protected us. The smallest one blinked and sent a thought so full of warmth it made him choke up. No, we protected each other. He pulled himself up slowly, still sore but alive. The cavern was quiet again. The light from the cradle cast a soft silver glow over them all. So what now? He asked softly. Now, the voice said gently, we must decide whether to hide or to teach. He frowned. Teach. Yes, the voice replied. Your people do not know us. They will fear us. But if they learn, maybe they can change too. He looked up at the glowing structure, then back at the pups. "Then we teach," he said. "But we do it our way." The pups' glow brightened in agreement, and for the first time, he felt hope, not just for them, but for himself, for Earth, and maybe for something greater. As they left the cavern together, the cradle of memory pulsed once more, sending a faint wave of energy through the earth, up through the mountains, through the sky, into the stars, carrying a single message: the bond has begun. The air outside the mountain was colder than before, sharp and thin, carrying the faint smell of rain. The man stood near the edge of the forest, his clothes torn and covered in dust, his hands trembling from exhaustion. Behind him, the mine entrance glowed faintly, its light fading slowly as the ancient cradle sealed itself once more beneath layers of stone. The pups floated beside him, quiet and watchful, their soft blue glow the only light in the darkness. He looked up at the night sky. The stars seemed brighter tonight, almost alive. Somewhere up there, he thought, their enemies were watching. "They'll come back," he whispered. "They always do." The smallest pup landed gently on his shoulder, pressing its warm body against his neck. "Not yet," the calm voice said in his mind. "They fear what they don't understand." He sighed, nodding slightly. "Yeah, humans do that too." He started walking toward his cabin, each step slow and heavy. The forest was silent except for the faint rustle of leaves and the occasional crack of twigs beneath his boots. He passed through the mist, his flashlight long dead, but the pup's glow guided him. The silence made him uneasy. He knew the government teams hadn't given up. They had probably seen the light show from miles away. And when they came back, they'd bring more. He just didn't know which would find him first, the soldiers or the aliens. When he finally reached his cabin, dawn was beginning to break over the mountains. The first rays of sunlight painted the horizon in gold and gray. The place looked like a ghost of itself, the door broken, windows cracked, boot prints all over the porch. He stepped inside carefully. The air smelled of gun oil and smoke. The soldiers had searched everything. His books were torn, his pictures shattered, his old radio dismantled. "They were here," he murmured. One of the pups floated toward the mess, its glow dimming. "They will come again," it whispered sadly. "They seek what they cannot have." He sat on the couch and rubbed his eyes. "I can't keep running forever," he said softly. "If they want you, they'll follow me to the ends of the earth." The pups looked at each other. Then one of them floated forward, its light pulsing faintly. "You don't have to run anymore. You have us now." He smiled weakly. "Yeah, but you're just kids." "Children of stars," the voice replied gently, "but learning from you. You showed us what it means to care, even when afraid." He looked at them, the three small beings who had somehow changed everything in a matter of days. He realized that he wasn't just their protector anymore. He was their teacher, their bridge to a world that might not be ready to see them. Before he could respond, the largest pup turned its head toward the window. Its glow brightened suddenly. "They are coming." The man froze, his stomach twisting. "Humans or aliens?" he whispered. "Humans," came the reply. He ran to the window. Through the trees, faint lights flickered, the green beams of search drones sweeping the forest floor. He could hear the low thrum of engines in the distance. Trucks. They were closing in fast. His pulse quickened. "We need to move. Now." The pups hovered around him, their light flickering in sync with his heartbeat. He grabbed his old backpack, threw in a few essentials, and slung it over his shoulder. "We go north," he said. "The valley's too open. If we stay near the ridge, they won't find us." But as he stepped outside, a sharp noise tore through the air, a metallic screech followed by the deep roar of engines. He looked up. A black aircraft hovered above the treetops, its rotors spinning silently, its hull marked with strange military symbols. It wasn't just soldiers anymore. They had brought hunters. Floodlights snapped on, cutting through the morning fog, illuminating the clearing around his cabin. A voice boomed through a speaker. "Step out with your hands visible. You are harboring classified biological material. Non-compliance will result in termination." He clenched his fists, looking at the pups. "They'll kill you," he said quietly. The smallest one floated closer, its voice trembling in his mind. "They don't understand. Let us show them." Before he could stop them, the 3 pups floated upward together. Their glow intensified, forming a sphere of blue light above the cabin. The soldiers shouted below, shielding their faces from the brightness. The light expanded, pulsing like a heartbeat. Then, images filled the air, holograms of the past, projected for everyone to see. The burning alien world. The fall of their kind. The search for hope. The crash. The man. The bond. The soldiers froze, their weapons lowering slightly as they stared in disbelief. The voice of the pups echoed through the clearing, not just in his head this time, but everywhere, translated into words humans could understand. "We did not come to conquer. We came to learn. And we found kindness." The man looked around, stunned. The commander of the soldiers, a tall man in a gray uniform, stepped forward, his face hidden behind a helmet visor. He hesitated, then spoke into his radio. "Command, are you seeing this?" A voice crackled back. "Yes. Maintain position. Do not engage." The man watched as the commander slowly removed his helmet. His eyes were cold, calculating, but not without curiosity. "If what they're saying is true," he said slowly, "then why run?" The man took a step forward. "Because you wouldn't believe them," he said, his voice steady. "You'd lock them up. Experiment on them. You call it science, but it's fear." The commander studied him for a long moment, then said, "Maybe fear keeps us alive. Or maybe it stops us from living." The man shot back. The clearing went silent again. The sunlight was stronger now, filtering through the trees and glinting off the aircraft's dark hull. Then, without warning, one of the drones hovering above began to spark. The commander turned sharply. "What's happening?" he barked. The man looked up and froze. In the sky, a dark shape appeared, massive and slow, blocking out the rising sun. It wasn't human. It was another alien ship, descending through the clouds, black and jagged like the claws of a giant beast. The pups' glow flickered anxiously. "They found us," they whispered in unison. The commander backed away, shouting orders. "All units, defensive formation. Get the civilians out of the zone." Soldiers scrambled, weapons raised toward the sky. The man looked at the pups, his voice low but firm. "You have to hide." "No," they said together. "We end it here." The ship's shadow covered the forest as it descended lower. Energy crackled in the air, the ground trembling beneath their feet. The man stood beside the pups, his fists clenched, his heart racing. He wasn't running this time. If the aliens wanted war, they'd have to face something they didn't expect. A human willing to stand for something greater than fear. The ship stopped above the tree line, its hull splitting open like a giant flower of steel. Inside, rows of alien figures stood in formation, their armor gleaming red under the morning sun. One of them stepped forward, tall, cold, and familiar. The same leader from the cave. Its voice boomed across the valley. "You protect what should not exist." The man glared up at it. "No," he said, his voice strong. "I protect what deserves to live." The alien raised its hand. "Then you will die with them." But before it could strike, the pups rose higher, their light exploding outward, merging into one massive sphere of radiant blue energy. The man shielded his eyes as the light swallowed the clearing. The earth shook, the air burned, and then everything went silent. When the light faded, the alien ship was gone, vanished without a trace. The soldiers stood frozen, staring at the empty sky. The man fell to his knees, breathing hard, looking for the pups, but they were gone too. The only thing left behind was a faint shimmer in the air, a soft whisper in his mind. "We will return when your world is ready." He closed his eyes, tears filling them. The commander stepped forward slowly. "What happened?" he asked quietly. The man looked up at him and said, "They gave us a chance." And as the sun rose higher, spreading light across the valley, he knew that the story wasn't over. Somewhere out there, Among the stars, the alien pups were still watching, waiting for the day humanity proved it had truly learned what it meant to care.